Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Simranjeet Mann and I make videos about law, careers, personal development, current awareness, and also vlogging my journey to becoming a solicitor and beyond. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Kajol Patel. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Kajol and I post content to do with consulting and entrepreneurship and productivity as well. Thanks for having me here, Simran.
No worries at all. Today we're going to have a really important discussion. Me and Kajol have literally had this planned since August, I think. I think that's when I first reached out to you. So this has been a long time coming and we're really excited today to talk a little bit about diversity, inclusion, but we're taking it via a different path today. We're going to be talking about it more in terms of insecurities. And if at any point you can relate to anything that we're saying, or you have anything extra to add, or you think that we've missed anything out, please do write it in the comments below. We're more than happy to hear about other opinions about this.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you know what? I'm actually quite curious. Let's just jump straight into it. What has been one of your biggest insecurities, Simran?
I guess one of my biggest insecurities was the way I spoke. I'm not sure about you, Kajol, but I'm not from the most poshest area where we pronounce our T's and we use the most eloquent language. I grew up using things like bad man or road man or waste man, like all the types of mans that you can get out there. That is what my language was like. Still is, to be fair. I was popping gun fingers in one of my previous videos. So I just always thought that this is something that in a professional world, I would never fit in that sense, with that kind of element of not speaking properly. And to this day, even when I paralegaled in law firms and I've had work experiences, I found that my voice changes instinctively. I'm not sure whether this is the same for you.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the thing is, right, I feel that there's this connotation that posh voices make you sound cleverer, especially at work. And I come from Essex, right? So I've been born and brought up in Essex, and we are not, well, let's just say that the Essex accent is not known to be posh or sound clever. We're always connotated as people who sound dumb. So actually in work meetings, I'm the same. I do put on my client voice, or even with my working team. I think even when I'm doing YouTube videos, sometimes there's corporate posh voice comes out, but sometimes with my mates, I'd I'll kind of go back to roadman talk or proper casual talk. So, and I guess I've been really scared about it at work in terms of being judged for the way that I talk. And actually, I think I've been called out on it. So, a few of my teammates have definitely said that, Kajol, you sound so much more informal when you speak to us compared to when you're with the client, which I guess is really fair. But I guess that there's something around authenticity, right? Sometimes you may feel that just because you're changing your voice, you're not being authentic to who you are. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Simran.
Yeah, I definitely get that in terms of when I was at certain networking events or workplaces, I just felt like I had to act like someone I wasn't. I had to kind of fit this corporate image of what it was like to be a corporate person. Inevitably, that meant not only changing the way I spoke, but my body language and how I acted, and essentially being really kind of I'm not sure about you, Kajol, but being really rigid in structure and not really being as comfortable or free flowing, or not having those natural conversations that you could just have, that you usually have with friends or family. And I think that's one of the reasons why for law and training contracts, obviously you're applying to, there's so many different firms out there that you can select. And the firms that I ended up going for at the end of the day were the ones where I felt wholly comfortable with myself. The firm that I'm going to be starting with in the next couple of weeks, I actually cracked banter with them already, and even one of my feedback basically that I got back from this firm was, one of the reasons why we're hiring you is because we're funny, you're funny basically, and we can see natural banter from you. So I'm not I think it's really important to be in a workplace where you are allowed to be yourself, but of course there are workplaces and there are certain people in firms and organizations that still hold that traditional view.
I really resonate with that, because I feel that sometimes at work, people kind of look down upon us and people slightly judge us. So I think it's a systematic problem built at work. I feel that you need to have a certain accent, a certain vocabulary to show that you look professional. But I don't think professionalism should be based on these judgments that people have. Me speaking in an Essex voice, or you speaking in a rough accent and cracking banter, like you said, I don't think that really makes me inferior to other people. And I feel when we talk about embracing the equality and diversity of race in the workplace, we should definitely also talk about the embracing the equality of speech.
I definitely agree with you on that. I think all these kind of biases, they all form a part and they all add up at the end of the day to why certain someone may not get the job, or why a certain someone may not feel comfortable in the workplace, or may not get that promotion. And things like equality of speech definitely falls into that as well. I think also in terms of something for our viewers to take away, in terms of if you're someone watching this thinking, I don't really speak in a professional tone either, I think it's really important to surround yourself by individuals who have made it, for example, from the similar area as you. I think that's something that's really helped me. And also one thing that I really like on my YouTube channel with my viewers is a lot of people say it's really nice to be able to see someone in the legal career who speaks like us. So it's up to us to actually champion change and realize that, you know, you don't have to kind of conform to this corporate image. Of course, professionality and remaining professional in the workplace is important. You don't want to kind of overstep that boundary. But of course, you are allowed to be your natural self as well.
Yeah, and I think this is something which I always like to also hone in. So I definitely do that. I have this guy at work, he's a senior manager. When I first started at Deloitte, he was the only person who used to speak like us, like really rough, came from like East London. And, you know, I saw him as a senior manager. He's now a director. So it just shows that, you know, when there is one person there that you can kind of look up to, inspire to, and be like, okay, I can see myself in that person, you know, you feel like you are not being discriminated, I would say, in a way. I would also say that, and I think this, my next advice kind of applies to everything, like imposter syndrome and everything that, you know, everything like that. When we can't give in to fear, we need to kind of use that and make it a way for, kind of hone it in a way that we can use it to drive us to learn, be better, and grow, I would say.
I definitely agree with you as well. And that's actually like made me think of something that I never really thought of before. But the thing is, you can't change the way you speak completely. You can't change. Actually, that reminds me of an episode of Industry where someone, I know Afzal Hussain, you were saying, Kajol, before this call, that Afzal Hussain has done really good reaction videos to Industry. And there's a particular scene in there where a person has a Scottish accent and they've mastered it so well that they literally are a completely different person at the end of the episode. And it just goes to show how changing the way you speak ultimately means that you're changing the way you are. But in certain cases, like with me, I can't completely change my accent. And it leads on to another insecurity, I guess. You know, it's the same thing as like, I can't really change the color of my skin. Like, I was born with these features. I was born with the background that I'm from. And at the end of the day, you can't change that completely, because at the end of the day, you're still that same natural person. So being in a workplace where you are accepted for that is absolutely key.
And I actually used to dodge meetings, and I used to, or be the first one in meeting rooms, just because I felt so intimidated, because one, usually I was the only person of color, or two, because I was the only woman, and obviously because of my age. And I felt not discriminated by my age, but I felt like I was intimidated because I was the youngest one there. So in terms of when we feel a little bit singled out, if it's, you know, your color, your age, your race, your color, your age, or your gender, really think about, there is a reason why you're being asked to go to that meeting. There's a reason why you're being asked to go to that room, you know, and there is value that you can bring. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asked to be in that meeting. So change your way of thinking, reframe your mind, because stop looking at it negatively, look at it really positively, right?
You could definitely say the same. That's so funny though, that you used to dodge meeting rooms. That's crazy, because it just goes to show how much your insecurities can build up so much that you actively put yourself at a disadvantage to doing something. Like, say if you are the first person in a meeting room, that could lead you to leadership opportunities. That could give you the chance to meet new people, have a bit of a small talk, a bit of a conversation before the meeting starts. And in fact, that insecurity that you had deprived you of the opportunity because you were kind of like scared of making that first step, I guess. And I guess the same thing about the fact that you were invited to that meeting, it goes to show it's definitely it's definitely relatable to when you are applying to jobs as well. So for example, in the legal sphere, when you're applying to training contracts or vacation schemes, understand that, you know, when you get an interview for a firm, for example, you've been called there for a reason. They're perfectly aware, that you're a woman or you are a person of color, etc. So embracing that and actually making that your selling point, I think, was something that really, really helped me when I was in the process, rather than making it something that for me, put extra pressure on myself. Oh my God, the odds are already stacked up against me because I don't speak a certain way, or I'm a certain, my skin's a certain color, that kind of thing. Instead of thinking in that kind of way, like you said, Kajol, I reframed it into, you know what, this is something that I can actually leverage to my advantage to make me stand out.
And I really, really want to say that if you're feeling like this, use your unique experiences to an advantage, right? Because whilst you may not relate to all the other experiences that people may have when you're in a room or when you're applying against everyone else for an interview, use your unique experiences of not relating and use that as a way to stand out, because people will be like, wow, there is something to learn from her because I've not experienced it. So there's so much I can learn from that individual, right? So I now kind of look at it like that way. I sometimes think there's not a lot of people of color in my firm, but now I'm like, okay, right, like I can bring this to the table because this is my unique experience which no one else has gone through.
And I'm sure a lot of people who see your videos as well, Kajol, they probably feel like, wow, this woman, she's of the same religion of me, or she's the same color of skin as me. Like, if she can do it, so can I. And that's why it's really important for people like us to make that first step to try and champion change and inspire change for the upcoming generations as well. An example that Kajol said actually about utilizing your unique experiences, I think an actual practical example of when I had this was a time when I was on an internship, and imagine guys, firstly I was the only female, and secondly I was the only woman of color, and that was only for that week though, so I'm not saying that's representative of the firm. It might have just been that actual week, it just happened, luck of the draw, I was stuck with a bunch of people who just looked nothing like me. I was the sore thumb that stood out, and at first I just felt really intimidated, like, oh my God, like the odds are already stacked up against me. How am I going to compete with people who obviously have good education and good academics, but also speak better? And just from a privileged perspective, they've had a more privileged background than I have, and they face less obstacles than I do in that kind of respect. So I was stuck with that. But then I thought, you know what? At the end of the day, I've been invited to this internship. I've worked hard to secure this place. And I'm going to try my utmost hardest to try and get the job offer at the end. And it just so happened that because I just allowed myself to be my natural self. For example, over lunch, I was bantering with one of the partners. They were talking about the England cricket team. And I was like, yeah, well, India's cricket team is so much better. And just having that kind of banter within like the first day of my internship over lunch, it really made me, I felt really made me stand out. And also was another example of how I leveraged my background. So my knowledge of Indian cricket, which only derives out of the fact that my dad and my brother literally love cricket so much, which is such a kind of typical brown household
we
thing.
Bleed blue. If anyone else feels that, comment that in the box below.
Yes. So when, it's such a common thing, and I was able to leverage that to actually build on conversations with people who are so much more senior than me in the team. And then that led on to my feedback, where they were like, Simran made an active involvement, like an active effort to engage in conversations with us over lunch. And that's what really contributed to them, making them feel like, you know what, she would be a good asset to the firm. And then I had the job offer at the end. So yeah, it just really goes to show, it's just an example of how I leveraged my background and what I know, what I grew up with, and what I'm comfortable with, to really give myself an advantage in a field where I was literally the only woman of colour there.
Do you feel that being a person of colour really inhibited your applications, or it did help your applications? Because now often we're seeing some of these people of colour or like gender specific application schemes and stuff. So quite interested to hear what you think.
Honestly, I don't, my simple short and answer to this is I don't know, because at the end of the day, I don't know whether someone picked up my application, they're like, ew, she's brown, and chugged away. Like, that would never happen, right? And I would never get feedback saying, oh, we're rejecting you because of the colour of your skin. Imagine the outrage if that happened. So it's quite, the whole thing with unconscious bias, it's quite insidious because it's behind the scenes. At the end of the day, an applicant can never really truly know why they've been rejected unless feedback was given of, oh, you didn't do this well, you didn't do that well, etc. So when I was in the application process, for a really honest answer, I don't know whether that played a part in me not getting successful at first and facing those rejections that I did have at first. But at the end of the day, I have heard of situations where people have felt that disadvantage because of the colour of their skin. It's definitely, a big thing, and there have been stories about that. So definitely not saying that it doesn't exist, because it does. Just for me personally, I feel like I'm quite lucky and quite privileged, I guess, to have not faced that quite blatantly in my face.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because I feel that, the fact that you don't know in some respect is a positive, because otherwise if you did know, you blatantly know they're discriminating you, right? Whereas you'd hope that if you don't know, they probably didn't, right? Sorry, I'm just rambling on here. But I have also found that in my firm, we are doing, like, you know, since, I think specifically since the Black Lives Matter protests, there's been such a big push on diversity for everyone, okay? My only issue with this whole thing is that, you know, all non-white people are classed into BAME, this group that of, like, you know, that is like everyone non-white. But what we really need to realize is that within this community of BAME, there are so many different cultures, so many different ethnicities, and they can't be tackled the same. They all have their different cultural differences and different reasons why they are not, you know, rising in leadership. So I think, in my opinion, that it should be resegmented. And I also have found that, especially in consulting, like only 10% of partners are BAME. You know, I hate using this word, sorry.
But we're using apostrophes.
I feel that sometimes when you don't have, like, I'm not sure about how you find it in law, whereas like in consulting, I don't really have anyone who is brown, I would say, that I look up to who's a partner. So sometimes I'm even like saying to myself, will I be able to make it? If there's no one up there, is like, you know, do I even have a chance, right?
Okay guys, I hope you really enjoyed the conversation that we've had so far. So just to recap, we've talked about our insecurities in terms of the way we speak, and also we've touched upon our insecurity being the colour of our skin. If you really liked our conversation and you want to hear more specifically about things like imposter syndrome and also people of colour being in leadership, do check out Kajol's channel, where she will post a part 2 to this video. You can find details to her channel in the video description below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you all in the next video.